Manx Radio's Update with Lewis Foster.
Fastermind, welcome along to Update on Manx Radio. It's 5 o'clock on Tuesday the 22nd of April. Hope you had a good Easter weekend. It's time for half an hour of the latest news on and from the Isle of Man. Coming up, April's sitting of Tynwald got underway today, and it was all health, housing and horse trams. And it looks like Heysham Port is about to get a makeover. All of that and more coming up, plus the latest weather and sport for you, as well as what to watch out for on the roads this evening. And as always, let us know your thoughts. You can text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. First of all, let's take a look at the latest headlines with Siobhan Fletcher. Fastermind, Siobhan.
Fastermind. The Infrastructure Minister has scrapped plans to create a housing association, saying the model lacked clarity and would take up to 3 years to set up. Instead, Michelle Haywood says a new housing agency will be created within government with political oversight.
The key question remains about who's going to pay for this. The housing agency will manage existing funding streams that are already allocated for housing.
Peel Ports Group has announced redevelopment plans, with Heysham Port set to see £10 million of investment to enhance its capacity and operational efficiency. A design for restoring the horse tram tracks from the War Memorial to the Sea Terminal is due to be considered by Treasury. If support is given, Tynwald members will then be asked if they'll give the project the go-ahead. The Health and Social Care Minister insists the department has engaged with service users when making changes to patient-facing services. Claire Christian faced criticism from Ramsey MHK Laurie Hooper, who claims the DHSC has failed to meet its legal obligations under the Manx Care Act to properly consult with patients.
The law requires that this engagement happen, and I'm going to quote from Section 8 of the Manx Care Act, in the planning, in the development and consideration of proposals by the department and in decisions of the department.
And streaming giant Netflix has confirmed Heartstopper is to conclude with a feature film. Manx actor Joe Locke will reprise his role as Charlie Spring in the final chapter, which will start filming this summer. Further afield, the Scottish Government says it has no plans to reintroduce the Gender Recognition Reform Bill after the Supreme Court ruled a woman is legally defined only by biological sex. Earlier, Sir Keir Starmer appeared to backtrack on his previous position on trans rights, answering that a woman is a female adult. There'll be no further talks on redundancies at British Steel. Government action means 2 blast furnaces at its Scunthorpe plant are running, having faced closure under its Chinese owners. And the King's not going to the Pope's funeral, Prince William's going in his place. We learned earlier it will be on Saturday. They're your headlines. I'll be back with your news at 6.
Gurumaya, thank you, Siobhan. Let's take a look at the latest weather now, brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. Dry for much of today with sunny spells, but cloud will increase late this evening with a band of quite heavy rain arriving over the next few hours. Light or moderate southerly winds backing southeast and strengthening through the evening. The maximum temperature 13 degrees. Tonight the rain will become light, but winds will increase fresh to strong for a time. Then tomorrow any patchy rain at first will soon die out as sunny spells develop and winds fall light. Maximum temperature tomorrow a rather warm 16 degrees. And then dry with bright or sunny spells on Thursday as well. Sunset tonight is at 33 minutes past 8 and sunrise tomorrow morning is 1 minute before 6.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
If you run a small business or just need more room in the back, Philshore Vehicles has the perfect van or light commercial for all your needs and can sort out any finance. Based in the Tremode Estate, view philshorevehicles.im or call 49 51 49.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's Bedding Store. From quality Bell-Dorm bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company, Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
SMS Trading have moved to 3 St Paul's Square, Ramsey. For flat pack to fully built, new or second-hand furniture, SMS Trading offer all-island delivery and man-in-a-van service. Call 315151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
At Begode Cashery, we have been caring for animals for over 50 years. As a cashery, we care for customers' cats and treat them as our own. Contact Begode Cattery on 676 947 or find Begode Cattery on Facebook.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
Indeed, and the time now is 5:05. As we heard from Siobhan there, the Infrastructure Minister has scrapped plans for a housing association on island. Instead, Dr Michelle Haywood has told Tynwald this afternoon she intends to set up a government-led housing agency.
Mr President, I see this as a vital interim step towards any future housing association. Due to the embedded nature of housing within public estates and housing in the department, the separation of ring fencing of housing will create a standalone operation that will focus on housing. This will ensure financial transparency in the costs and providing and maintaining housing. It will create an opportunity to strengthen governance and direction using the terms of reference for the agency. And it will create a team with a clear focus on increasing the availability of affordable homes in the various categories. The agency will be overseen by a board with a political chair accompanied by voluntary non-executive directors. Some honourable members may ask why we're proposing a housing agency rather than a housing association at this stage. The answer lies in being cognisant of the many concerns that were expressed when we debated the Tolson report. An agency within the department ensures that we continue to have direct political governance rather than creating an arm's-length company. The Altair model didn't address how a housing agency could include political representation at all. A housing agency where we can ring-fence the funding in the housing sector will give us clear financial accountability and will channel monies back into housing provision. One aspect from the feedback from DOI officers to Altair was the lack of a development officer post. Ironically, that was one of the things that got cut to try and reduce costs to bring this into being. However, honourable members, we have repurposed a post within the department to become that development officer. A key question remains about who's going to pay for this. The housing agency will manage existing funding streams that are already allocated for housing. The department already has some development land. We already have some plans drawn up. And we will look to work with the private sector to deliver a range of affordable housing in a variety of models. We're also seeking opportunities to repurpose buildings that exist within the government estate currently. As the agency is in effect an internal reorganisation within DOI, no additional burden will be placed on taxpayers beyond what is already earmarked for housing. Instead, the Housing Agency Board will ensure that housing funds are managed more efficiently, transparently and effectively.
Infrastructure Minister Michelle Haywood there in Tynwald this afternoon speaking about plans to set up a government-led housing agency, and we'll hear from Dr Haywood on another matter shortly. Now, some news from England this morning that will no doubt pique the interest of Manx residents. Heysham Port is set to see £10 million of private investment to enhance its capacity and operational efficiency. Peel Ports Group announced it would be committing the funds towards the redevelopment plans earlier today, saying all operators at the site will benefit. That includes, of course, the Isle of Man steam packet. The investment, Peel Port says, will go towards a series of upgrades designed to future-proof operations, support increased cargo volumes and strengthen the port's resilience. Extra space will be created at the port by reconfiguring the site's trailer park, allowing for future growth such as Stena Line's deployment of 2 new-build state-of-the-art new Max ferries. A new gate operating system will be introduced, which it says will lead to a better experience for hauliers by improving reliability, reducing congestion and creating additional space. Steam Packet Managing Director Brian Thompson says the investment is a significant step forward for the port, enhancing efficiency and capacity for all users. We welcome these improvements, he says, which will help us continue to grow our operations with confidence. The work is due to begin in the coming weeks. Now, it was a good day all round, it seems, for Manx Transport. Along with that news from Peel Port, a short but significant statement has been made in Tynwald on the full-length future of the horse trams. A question from MHK Tim Glover brought this from Infrastructure Minister Dr Michelle Haywood.
The department has been working on a design, project plan and business case for the single line of tram tracks to the sea terminal. This is under consideration by the department and a policy development meeting was held on April the 8th. Once the business case has been completed, it will be presented for consideration by Treasury before submission to Tynwald.
Supplementary, Mr Glover.
Guramayad, Hector, and I thank the Minister for her reply and the positivity contained within that. Is she aware, and are there, provided Treasury approval is provided, that we can actually convert the halfway horse tram into a full horse tram for the 150th anniversary year next year?
Shall I to reply?
Thank you, Mr President. In fact, I'm more than aware, I've done the deal with Manx Radio, they'll stop calling it the halfway horse tram if we manage to deliver the extension.
No comment. That's Dr Michelle Haywood, their Infrastructure Minister, speaking to Arbury and Castletown, Arbury and Maloo MHK, Tim Glover there.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
And it's 5:10 now. And the Health and Social Care Minister insists the department has engaged with service users and has an active engagement strategy in place when making changes to patient-facing services. Claire Christian says feedback from Manx Care's Advice and Liaison Service suggests some patients feel isolated after experiencing long waits to be seen. She acknowledges the health service is operating under particularly challenging timescales, but says her department is committed to listening to public feedback and responding appropriately. However, Ramsey MHK Laurie Hooper, a former health minister, criticised the department, claiming it has failed to meet its legal obligations under the Manx Care Act to properly consult with patients.
The department, as the minister has correctly identified, must ensure that patients are involved, whether by being consulted or provided with information. So, let's try this again. When were patients and service users given information that diabetic retinopathy would no longer be rolled out, and when the ADHD service would no longer be rolled out for adults? When did that happen? During the development of the mandate, as the law quite explicitly requires, as the Minister has just confirmed to this Honourable Court.
Decisions around screening programmes, specifically diabetic retinopathy, are primarily clinical decisions with recommendations made by Public Health. It was always the intention that this review would include engagement with relevant local stakeholders, and we will do so when we progress that work, as I specifically said in my original answer.
So I'm glad the Minister has now confirmed that engagement will happen at some point in the future, but that's not actually what the law requires. The law requires that this engagement happen, and I'm going to quote from Section 8 of the Manx Care Act, in the planning of the relevant arrangements, in the development and consideration of proposals by the department, and in decisions of the department. Not after I've made my mind up, before decisions are made, in the planning, in the development of these decisions. Can the Minister explain to this Honourable Court why she has not complied with the law?
I believe in the development is in this, as I've explained. And as I said, the Honourable Member, I'm sure, will remember his engagement during his time as the Minister when he made changes to the out-of-hours services. And during that time, I don't recall any development before that period. It is before those changes were announced. Thank you, Mr. President.
Health Minister Claire Christian speaking to Ramsey MHK Laurie Hooper there. Well, the Health Minister maintains that engagement will take place in the future. We'll turn our attention to this week's local authority election now, as a candidate for Ramsey's North Ward says her top priority is to open the reuse shed at the Northern Civic Amenity site. Pauline Johns-Garrett, standing for the Liberal Vannin Party, also wants to see more support for the elderly and people with disabilities by lobbying for skipper buses and more dropped curbs.
I would push for the reopening of the Ballador reuse shed. I get an awful lot of people asking about that. They want to know when that's being reopened. People do ask for it to be opened. We do need that shed reopened. I don't know what they have there now. I think it's just being used for storage, but they need to clear that stuff that's stored there out and get it open again as a reuse shed for the people of Ramsey and the north of the island.
What do you think it is that are the key problems that residents are facing at the moment?
It's getting around the town. People are asking they want town skipper buses to get around. I know that's not a problem for Ramsey commissioners, but Ramsey commissioners can push the government on things like this. Buses are not that frequent for areas out around Derby, but also housing in Ramsey. We've got an awful lot of ruinous buildings. I know they are tackling that now. We do need to have rates put on these places. They put the rates up every year. They'll soon start to do something with them and either rent them out or do them up and rent them out or sell them on. Young people in the town that can't afford to get on the housing ladder, that needs to be really looked at. Again, pushing the government not to put money forward to allow things like that. Ramsey town itself needs a good clean up, good tidy up in the town. It looks a bit past its best when you go around, and there's no need for that. Actually, I think shops and that in Ramsey can get outside and clean up their own shop fronts. Can't expect the commissioners to do everything. They can go outside, wash their own windows, wash all the down around the pavement and the bottoms of their windows and things like that to keep things a bit tidy. People used to do it years ago.
That's Pauline Johns-Garrett, who's standing for the Liberal Vannin Party as an election candidate for Ramsey's North Ward. The other candidates standing for Ramsey Commissioners North Ward are Emma Honey, Juan McGuinness, Katrina Nettlat, Andrea Nolan, Elizabeth Shimin, Margaret Webb and Wilf Young.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
We'll head over to the roads in Ramsey. Temporary lights at the Bowring Road / Derby Road junction, 24 hours a day for gas main work. Near Mackald, all this week, temporary lights on the Coast Road at Corriney, 24 hours a day for work on the manhole covers there. And in Santon until the 18th of May, temporary lights on the Newcastletown Road just south of Mount Murray for resurfacing. And a couple of things to watch out for tomorrow as well. In the west of the island, the TT course will be closed again, and on Thursday, 9:30 to 4:30 both days for TT preparation work there. The closure will be from Balig Bridge to Cronkervoddy Crossroads. And for the next couple of weeks, the Bennypot Road will be closed each day 9:30 to 4:30 between the Mountain Road and Bagarrow for road stud installation. Off-island travel now, no problems to report over at the airport this evening. And on the sailings, Manxman left Heysham at 2:20 and is expected back into Douglas at 6 o'clock, so around 45 minutes time. And Manannan is on her way to Liverpool, due to arrive at the ferry terminal there at 6:15.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at Quayside. You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
16 minutes past 5, local authorities in the south of the island would have been willing to make a financial contribution to keep buses going to Cregneash and the Sound. That's from the Clerk of Arbury and Russian Parish Commissioners, which says it's deeply disappointed that the number 28 service has been permanently withdrawn. The Department of Infrastructure announced last year that the route would no longer be running as it wasn't financially viable. Phil Gaughan says the commissioners have been taken aback by the lack of dialogue from central government.
What the Arbury and Russian Parish Commissioners asked the RTLC to do was to delay consideration while the department hopefully would speak with affected parties, potential supporters, such as the local authorities, and to see whether a solution could be found. But of course, what's happened is the RTLC, I think it was on Thursday, sent a message to the commissioners to say, well, actually, we have discovered that we can't require the department to continue to operate the service. Well, it wasn't quite what we'd asked for, but certainly the fact that they've spent possibly 3 months now considering the matter and getting legal advice has given the department the time necessary to actually have the proper discussions with the affected parties.
And the issue was, according to the Department of Infrastructure, was that the route wasn't financially viable, but you're saying the commissioners had some proposition towards that, didn't they?
Well, yes, and of course, I say that the department has had time, thanks to this delay, to talk to the affected parties, but it hasn't actually done that. So Arbury and Russian Parish Commissioners had agreed to consider, at the very least, putting some money in to try to keep the service operating. I know a similar conversation had been had, certainly with some Port St Mary commissioners. Whether they'd reached a formal position one way or the other on that, I'm not certain. But there was a degree of support potentially available had the department actually been bothered enough to have a conversation with us. But they hadn't even done that, which does seem quite surprising.
Phil Gaughan, Clerk of Arbury and Russian Commissioners there. Now, members of the public are being reminded that the importation of bees from the UK is subject to a blanket ban, which could result in a hefty fine if broken. The issue was raised by a caller to Manx Radio's Man-in Line, who saw an advertisement from a UK company that offers solitary red mason bee cocoons for sale by mail order. Bee populations around the globe have been affected by the deadly Varroa virus spread by mites. The island's official bee inspector, who also doubles as advisor on bees and beekeeping generally, is Harry Owens.
That's honeybee, bumblebees, solitary bees or whatever. And it has a fine of £1,000. But one of the things would be, if they did send it by post, I would suggest that our post office would then get in touch with DEFA, who in turn would then destroy them, which would be an awful shame to to do such a thing. So the cocoons they're talking about, usually the minor bee goes down about a foot or more in the ground and forms this cocoon where it puts eggs, etc. in. And the bees, that's at the back end of the summer, and in the spring they'll emerge from the ground as a bee. Their fertilizer properties are brilliant, and in fact there's 150 different, as far as I know, subspecies of solitary bee within the British Isles. I don't know how many subspecies in the Isle of Man, but we most definitely have got the minor bee here. I don't think there's a need for bringing them in, actually.
But of course, the point is it's critically important that the island remains varroa-free, isn't it?
Whatever disease-free we need to be, because we are actually unique in the world, and there's very, very few places that can have the same status as we have. We've got the EU status as such for varroa-freeness, and there's a couple of areas in the west of Scotland that are free of it, but bringing varroa into the Isle of Man would be catastrophic, because the consequences from doing that would be, when it first arrived in 92 in the UK, it decimated an awful lot of bees. It's recovered now, but to do such a thing would be absolutely foolish.
Simon Richardson talking to the island's official bee inspector, Harry Owens. And can we belatedly offer Harry our very best wishes after his 90th birthday on Thursday? 21 minutes past 5, streaming giant Netflix has confirmed LGBTQ+ drama Heartstopper is to conclude with a feature film. The series, starring Manx actor Joe Locke, first premiered in 2022. Siobhan Fletcher reports.
The ex-Ballacamine student was picked via an open casting call to play lead Charlie Spring after going up against 10,000 other hopeful teenagers. The show has proved to be Joe's big break. He's since performed in musical Sweeney Todd on Broadway and has even joined the Marvel Cinematic Universe as Billy Maximoff in Agatha All Along. He'll be back to reprise his starring role and is set to executive produce alongside co-star Kit Connor. The final chapter will be based on the upcoming 6th and final instalment of creator and writer Alice Oseman's graphic novel series. She told Netflix, "I'm completely overjoyed that we will get to tell the end of the Heartstopper story. I'm so grateful for everyone who's worked hard to make this possible, and to the incredible fans of Heartstopper for your patience and passion. I cannot wait to bring this story to a magical conclusion." The film will pick up following the season 3 finale, with Nick preparing to leave for university and Charlie finding new independence at school, and will start filming this summer.
Siobhan Fletcher there with that report. Now, yesterday morning we heard the announcement from the Vatican that Pope Francis had died at the age of 88. Speaking to Manx Radio following the announcement, the Dean of the Roman Catholic Church on the Isle of Man, Monsignor John Devine, paid tribute.
I've been a priest for over 50 years, and I think Pope Francis was the Pope I identified with most. So many of his instincts and reactions and priorities corresponded to my own. He was the Pope most people outside the church took seriously. Even The Guardian did an editorial some time ago and said he was the one sane voice of leadership in today's troubled world. So that made me really proud. I think he humanized the church. Above all, he encouraged rather than judged. His famous phrase about homosexuality was, "Who am I to judge?" And that echoed round the world, and also gave some hardliners a heart attack, but that was so refreshing. And he identified with those who don't lead textbook lives, who live in the real world of less than perfect situations, especially those who are victims. Some of my own reactions as a priest over the years have felt out of line with the official teaching of the church and practice. And then Francis came along and I felt vindicated. I'd often wondered, do I really want to be a priest in this church at all? Until he came along. I spent 9 years working as a priest in South America in the 1980s, so I knew where he was coming from. Pope Francis spoke up for the poor, not just in South America, but across the world. And he had hard words for those who even went as far quite recently as defending inequality and injustice and promoting it even. And for those on the receiving end of that, I think he showed them the face of Christ, really.
That's Monsignor John Devine, the Dean of the Roman Catholic Church on the Isle of Man, paying tribute there to Pope Francis. Coming up to 5:25, let's have the latest sporting news now with Manx Radio sports editor Rob Pritchard. Faster my.
Faster my, Lewis. Well, it was, of course, a very busy Easter weekend of sport, and we'll start with what was a doubleheader in football. And Ayr United have been crowned winners of the 2025 ECAP FA Cup after a 4-0 victory over 10-man Foxdale at the Bowl on Easter Saturday. Sean Kelly netted the opener on 19 minutes, having seen a penalty saved by Foxdale's Andy Ball only 2 minutes earlier. The Northerners doubled their advantage just under 10 minutes into the second period, courtesy of a Chris Duggan header, with Cameron Tor adding a third in the 64th minute. With just 20 minutes remaining, Foxdale were reduced to 10 men when Alexander Hughes was given his marching orders for a second bookable offence, and just moments later Ayr United added their fourth through Lewis Moran's close-range strike. Elsewhere, the day before on Good Friday saw the 2025 GH Corlett Woods Cup final take place, with Braddon taking a 2-1 victory over Rams Youth Centre and Old Boys. In a close fought affair, it was Braddon who broke the deadlock as Joe Burrows converted a looping header on 36 minutes. However, Rams Youth Centre and Old Boys managed to level shortly before half-time as Ross Crawford diverted a point-blank effort into the net in the 43rd minute. And with 65 minutes on the clock, Braddon got a decisive second when Mark O'Neill smashed home a volley from a few yards out from a pinpoint Thomas Healy free kick. Elsewhere, the Isle of Man women's national cricket side claimed a trio of wins as they finished second in the Cyprus Quadrangular T20I series over Easter weekend. As well as finishing runners-up at the tournament in Limassol, 2 Isle of Man players also came away with individual honours. Lucy Barnett was named both player of the tournament and batter of the tournament, having racked up 272 runs and 5 wickets across 3 days. Elsewhere, Danny Murphy earned the title of bowler of the tournament with a return of 11 wickets. And finally, 4 Isle of Man athletes have completed this year's Boston Marathon in the USA. Paul Atherton, Dawn Atherton, Matt Collister and Clive Dugdale successfully completed the event yesterday, with 2 of those achieving sub-3-hour times. Quickest of the Island Quartet was Paul Atherton, who managed to cross the line in 2 hours, 35 minutes and 47 seconds to finish inside the top 500 in 484th position overall.
Manx Radio sports editor Rob Pritchard. Grumaya, that's it for Update tonight. Thank you for joining us. Island Life is up next, and Chris Pearson is at sea with the RNLI. Then Chris Kinley is back at 6 o'clock with Greatest Hits. Stay tuned. Have a great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.